I tell my client market ऊपर जाता है, आप खुश होते हैं, मुझे डर लगता है.
Elon Musk is the richest man in the world because
guy.
he is one stock. जो गाड़ी खरीदेगा ना, मैं I will buy Mercedes Benz.
My greatest secret for my wealth is meditation.
You do about the most important wealth that you have.
लक्ष्मी को अष्ट लक्ष्मी कहते हैं. Okay, you have all the wealth in the world.
Right.
Now you can buy all the sweets in the world, but you cannot digest it.
The idea being that you need to anchor your mind with some aspect of
I tell my children and my family and my friends, I am a lie detector.
Somebody may have old parents at home, somebody may have an unmarried person at home.
Said about expressive,
Utilitarian, expressive and emotional.
And emotional.
The difference between skill and luck is that skill is repeatable, luck is not.
Our podcast is based on first principles, where we discuss, we go to the very core of the subject of investing. Now we have a wonderful guest today with us. We have Mr. Ajit Menon. Ajit, welcome to the AM Finance
Thank
podcast.
you, Nirav. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to interview you, and thank you for giving me your precious time. In spite of you saying with a 50-year, 100-year track record, equity has done well. In US, we probably have a more than 100-year track record of equities, and India maybe 3-4 decades. You're still saying, still diversify, go into other asset classes also.
And the reason is because, and this is for the common man, right? For the common man, the one way to think about risk-adjusted
returns,
wealth creation is to make sure that all your eggs are not in one basket. Because you may need money at different times for different emergencies or whatever, and you can have different strategies to deal with all of that.
So for wealth creation, equity is wonderful.
Absolutely.
But there are some needs which are very short term, which are medium term,
and
for
you need
which
to protect,
you cannot, and you need to protect.
Correct. And you can also maybe need to protect your downside of your wealth as well.
Right.
So therefore, those other asset classes
have to be
why
looked
are they
into.
7 different, or why are they 6 different asset classes? Because they are differently correlated. If one goes up, the other is going down. So you need, if you need
like
a balance,
equity and gold,
you could
generally we can say are not positively correlated.
There are times when sometimes they get correlated. We have seen that in great dislocations of the market. Sometimes more asset class get correlated. But as a strategy, if you have patience with it, typically those correlations will come back in such a way that the balance of your asset is what will create the best outcome for your wealth in a risk-adjusted way. If you see serious wealth in the world, it's made with concentration. Owning one stock. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world because he is one stock. Oprah Winfrey or Bill Gates,
Steve Jobs is one stock guy. Bill Gates is one stock guy. Warren Buffett is a portfolio guy. One portfolio guy.
So we have to think about it saying, you know what, you can put all your bets in one basket and maybe.
But then you have to be that kind of a person then.
I think that it goes to skill and luck. The difference between skill and luck is that skill is repeatable, luck is not.
Yes.
So when you think smartly as an investor, as a common person, the reason for focusing on equity as an asset class, as a serious proportion of your asset class, but also having multiple other asset classes like fixed income or real estate or gold and things like that in your portfolio, is because you're now becoming more and more smarter to say that, listen, I want to have some skill in creating my wealth. I don't want to take a bet. I could win a bet, but I don't know what's the probability of that. So I think that's why advisors are so important when we think about the diversification aspect for a customer. Because typically a customer will say, let me put all my money in Bitcoin, maybe tomorrow I'll get wealth. I'm saying this as a joke, but you know, people do get attracted humanly to what's the best thing that's happening. There's recency effect, as they call it in behavior science. But the smarter way to approach is think about the biggest advantage of equity. It participates in innovation and human progress. That's where you make the best profits.
Wonderful.
And the second is, think about diversifying don't put all your eggs in one basket. Simple grandmother's common sense. Use other asset classes to your advantage to build a portfolio.
But a good portion. So now if I link the financial goals. So in India, we would have 3 or 4 major financial goals. One would be if you have a family, okay, and if you have children, so providing for higher education of the children, providing for their marriage, then your own retirement planning, and then providing for some physical assets like buying a house or buying a vehicle or going for a holiday. Now if you link this to the 7 asset classes, which asset class and how are you going to use those asset class to provide for these financial goals?
So, when we do a podcast or an article or a video, it's we end up generalizing.
Yes.
And I think that every client or every house is unique.
Yes.
And you more than anybody else will recognize that every single household is unique in their requirements.
To each his own.
To each his own, because their circumstances would be very different. Somebody may have old parents at home, somebody may have an unmarried person at home, or
somebody
young children,
somebody
old children.
Could be a single parent, somebody could be a divorcee, somebody couldn't have children, somebody would be dinks couple, double income, no kids.
There could be disability. So many aspects, right? So those are very unique. So in this podcast, I think from a viewer's perspective, I would say that when we think about a thumb rule, we say 100 minus age.
Which is
an allocation to equity.
Not a very right.
But I think that the thumb rule is a good thumb rule as a starting point. It may not be perfect, and somebody will say 120 minus age and blah, 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 whatever. The idea being that you need to anchor your mind with some aspect of saying that, what's the proportion of equity I should have? So this also means that even if I'm an 80-year-old person, I should have 20% of equity rather than putting all in fixed deposits, right? And I think that's a decent thumb rule to think about when thinking about any of your financial goals.
Even for the most conservative investor, some portion of equity, like I tell my clients that equity, if you are in the fag end of your life, use equity like salt in food.
Right.
Okay, you cannot, even if you are old, even if you have some issues, you cannot completely do away with salt. And somewhere the body requires that.
Right.
Okay, or sugar in coffee. Right?
Right.
So use equity like salt in food if you are at the fag end. And I know 70-year-old who are much more aggressive than a 30-year-old.
Yeah, and
so that is also very personal. Nothing wrong with that.
Personal.
It is to each his own.
Yeah.
But then in general, still we have to give rules to the viewers.
That's right.
So you are saying 20%, 15 or 20% equity, and there are mutual fund products where there is 75% debt and 25% equity. That product is also a fit for these people.
That's right. And I think that the longer the time frame of your goals, the more equity you should have, regardless of your age.
That is one rule.
Right, so you could be a 40-50-year-old.
So first rule you said everybody should have some portion of equity. Now it is up to you, to each his own, कि आपको कितना equity में comfort level है. As I tell my clients, the only thing you have to tell me is how much equity.
Yeah, and I think that you can use the thumb rule there, saying that if I'm a 40-year-old person, 100 minus 40, I should have 60% in equity.
Okay.
If I'm a 30-year-old young person, 100 minus 30, I should have 70% of my money in equity. If I'm a 70-year-old person, 100 minus 70, I should have at least 30% in equity.
Second, use multiple asset classes.
Use multiple asset classes, and where you use multiple asset classes is you increase the proportion for shorter term goals and you decrease it and go more towards equity if your goal is very long term.
Equity is a long term asset. So long term goal like planning for children's higher education. If the education is 5-10 years down the line, nothing like equity.
That's right.
Then don't go for debt.
Then don't go for it.
Yeah, but any goal which is 3 years and less, then you can use fixed income, debt mutual funds product for that. Or hybrid.
And let me tell you that while I'm the CEO of PGIM here, and I have a 30-year experience, out of which 23 has been just in mutual funds. I have a financial advisor. I have a financial written.
You also have a financial advisor. You are a CEO of a mutual fund.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, whose parent is 11th biggest in the world.
Yes.
And you also have a financial.
I have a written financial plan. I have had a financial advisor.
Why you need? I mean, with 30 years of experience, why you need a financial advisor?
Because we make mistakes with our money based on our emotions, not our intelligence.
So here I get that can I compare it with an analogy? If I am a doctor, normally doctors do not operate on their own family members, because you have to be very objective.
That's right.
And if you are treating your own family member, you become emotional. That's why you having a 30-year experience, 23 of which in the mutual fund industry, being a CEO of a leading mutual fund, you are saying you have a financial advisor.
That's right.
And that should address, Ajit, a lot of myth. I get many high-profile clients who says I've been a millionaire and a billionaire. मैं scratch से खड़ा हुआ हूँ और अपने 4 business खड़े किए. Why do I need an external guy to advise me? And I say the skill required to create money from your business is a separate skill. And the skill required to create money from money by investing is a separate skill.
That's right.
Which I have learned over the couple of years.
That's right. And what you said about the doctor example, the doctor not
treating their
surgery on themselves or on their near and dear ones, is to have objectivity.
Yes.
As you mentioned, I think it is the same thing with money. और सबको पैसा प्यारा होता है, सबको अपना wealth obviously प्यारा होता है.
और हम emotional, money is an emotional subject.
And
we get emotionally attached with money.
Exactly. So when things happen in the marketplace, when you see opportunities or you see danger, you will react. right? And I think that's the danger for wealth. So having a
And
trusted
more
advisor,
often than not, it's a knee-jerk reaction.
it ends up being reactionary. So where you can have a trusted advisor, so your only job is really to evaluate your advisor for their risk management process. And if you are comfortable with that risk management process, you are good to go. Right. So I'll give you my example. My daughter is currently studying abroad. She'll graduate next year.
Yeah.
But she completed her 12th in 2020. And she had to go abroad in 2020 for her first semester. We all know 2020.
Yes.
Lockdown and
yes.
COVID.
Yes.
Right?
A very dangerous year.
And I was obviously building up the coppers for her fees and things like that for the for about 8 years or 9 years by then. And suddenly the markets were down 40%, and I had to pay a large amount of fees for her first semester. And you're worrying. You will typically
So even
worry.
somebody of your profile,
Yeah.
you are a CEO of a leading, you manage 25,000 odd crores.
Yeah.
You are saying you had a bad year. The exact year when the market went down 40%. And your daughter needed a very big sum there.
Right.
That was a hit even for you.
It was not a hit for me
Okay.
because my advisor's risk management process
Okay.
was that 1 year
Huh.
before a goal matures, the money is taken out of equity and
Put into
fixed
debt.
income.
Wonderful.
So in August
So
2019,
even though the market, the equity market went down by 40%, your money which was
I
lying
didn't
in the
have-
debt portion did not take a hit.
all of it. I mean, whatever fees was required for 2020, it
Was
was
already
already
parked.
taken and parked in debt.
So कोई issue नहीं आया.
कोई इशू नहीं. गोल 2000, so he had planned for it in such a way कि आपका गोल अगर रिटायरमेंट का हो, घर का हो, गाड़ी का हो, जो भी हो,
Yes.
you're saying this is a 5-year goal, this is a 10-year goal, this is a 15-year goal. He will take it as 4-year, 9-year, 14-year, and make sure once that you get there, the money 1 year before that is taken and kept in a safe asset. Now he had that.
And
risk
that
management
decision when you take, you are not bothered market कहाँ पे है. Market ऊपर है कि down है. 1 year before your goal is to be, let's say if I want to buy a house 5 years down the line,
Yeah.
4 years from today,
Yeah.
I should take out that money जो भी बना है और उसको debt funds में डाल देने का. So
that was the process that my advisor had.
and that worked for you.
And for me, I didn't even have to think. And so right from the start, I've never had to think. Goal hai, call up my advisor, say, listen, redemption because I need to pay this. I have never had to think twice because I have a certain IRR or return that I required for each of these financial goals. It's on track. I honestly don't know 8 out of 10 funds that I've invested in. Because
They are not necessarily in your own mutual fund.
Yeah, I mean, it is, one would be my fund for sure because, from a regulatory standpoint, I have to do it and things like that. But the fact is that, that trusted process, that trust of the trust process is what I think is most important.
Yes.
And when you have that with an advisor, you are.
So I like this. I found this very interesting, this data point that you being CEO of PGIM, you have your own financial advisor.
I do.
And if you need a financial advisor, who doesn't need it?
Yeah. And it's a smart strategy. It's not. It is needed.
Actually, a mutual MF registered MFD, which I am, or a financial advisor, is taking your money. He is actually bringing a wall between you and your money.
Right.
I don't know whether that is the right term to use. And he's so somebody else is taking the decision for you. And once in a lifetime, even somebody who is so qualified as you might emotionally react to a very extreme situation like COVID.
That's right.
That time, so when I am managing somebody else's money, I am not emotionally attached to it.
Yeah.
But if I am managing my own money, in spite of being so well informed and knowledgeable and experienced, I might be emotional.
It's like, in a manner of speaking, it may not be a great analogy to say, but it's like if you're driving the car, your advisor is the brake, the accelerator, the rear view mirror put together.
Okay, wonderful.
Right? Because you will drive, you will enjoy the drive, you need to enjoy the drive, but the safety mechanisms, the guardrails, because I don't think any advisor will claim to say they know everything or that they will claim to say, I know what's going to happen tomorrow, but what they know is the process, the risk management process.
Okay.
And I think that's where the great value add happens for a person's wealth creation journey because very few people understands the sequence of return risk. I think what I meant when I was saying sequence of investing is that, as an investor starts his or her journey, there is a simple sequence to keep in mind that will help you not go terribly wrong in your journey. And that sequence of investing is first to have some control over household budgeting.
Okay.
Then to think about protection.
Okay.
Then about saving.
Okay.
And only then about investing.
First, household budgeting. Okay. Budget your expenses well. so that you are spared with some surpluses. Then risk controlling, so which means mediclaim at place, critical illness plan at place, term insurance at place. That is protection. And then you think about
then saving, which
saving,
is an emergency fund.
The emergency corpus.
Correct.
Yes.
And
then you talk about investment. That's what I tell my clients also, that सबसे पहले provide for insurance. Okay, so budgeting किया. You should have a very good, handsome term insurance for the breadwinner. I've divided, Ajit, I've come out with my own term, breadwinners and bread eaters. Okay. So term insurance for the breadwinner of the family, mediclaim and critical illness plan for both the breadwinners as well as the bread eaters, because anybody can fall ill. Okay. Then provide for an emergency corpus via short-term funds, debt funds and all that. And then you start investing aggressively for all your goals.
That's good. And when you think about goals, there is also, when you think about goals, I could call them that they should be SMART goals. And S is for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound.
Can you repeat that?
Specific, measurable,
achievable, right?
Realistic, and time bound.
Okay.
So if you want to think about तो goals क्या होने चाहिए? Goals अगर ये filter pass हुआ smart वाला, it's a goal. I mean, I'm not saying that I want to be the next Shah Rukh Khan. Is not a goal. But is it realistic? Is it measurable? What is the time bound? So when you put the smart formula into it, that okay, I know that I am thinking about my retirement. I can measure it in terms of saying that I know what is my expense today and therefore what I might require, and I also know that it is achievable because I am planning now to work, get a secondary source of income, build on my skills and all of that. It's realistic because I will need it. I don't want to be dependent on my children, and it's time bound. I need this in the next 20 years.
Understood. Right. Okay, wonderful.
Then it becomes a goal. So, well, I think that you're right, and you know, when you come to things like behavioral finance, it tells you that most individuals, whoever they may be, ultra high net worth, retail, they will have three kinds of thought processes that are going behind when they're thinking about their money. The first is utilitarian, the second is expressive, and the third is emotional.
Repeat.
The three needs that money will fulfill over a period of time in a person's
utilitarian,
life,
that is wants.
Well, utilitarian is इसका काम क्या है? मैं इससे क्या करना चाहता हूँ? गाड़ी खरीदना चाहता हूँ या मैं घर खरीदना चाहता हूँ, तो
क्या
यूटिलिटेरियन बेनिफिट है ना, मैंने पैसे कमाए हुए हैं क्योंकि ये मुझे घर चलाना है, मुझे गाड़ी खरीदना है, मुझे घर खरीदना है, वगैरह वगैरह. So that is utilitarian.
Okay.
Expressive is when you say that जो गाड़ी खरीदेगा ना, I will buy Mercedes Benz.
Sure.
Because it expresses who I am as a person.
ठीक है.
If I'm driving a BMW or a Mercedes or a Toyota Innova or a Maruti, it tells something about me to the world.
It is a statement.
So there is an expressive need in human beings to express themselves.
So these are what? Utilitarian, these are what?
Expressive and emotional.
These are what?
These are, well, you could say that these are unsaid sort of needs that dominate your decision making while you are.
So one is utilitarian. So you're buying a car because you need a transportation.
So you know, for retail individuals, largely utilitarian needs होते हैं. मुझे पैसे चाहिए. वैसे ही पैसे की तंगी है. I'm trying hard to create the surplus.
गाड़ी चाहिए, लेकिन
तो मुझे bike चलेगा, गाड़ी चलेगी, and so you do that. It's utilitarian.
Utilitarian. Then expressive.
When you
to make a
little bit more richer, inside your heart, even whether you're a retailer, you want to say something, if I'm seen with an Apple Watch, it says something about me that, I'm a fitness enthusiast, right? That expressive need is important for people. And the last one is emotional, which is that, when it comes to every individual, and especially when it comes to ultra high net worth individuals, there's an emotional need that says that, what does this say? What does this make me as a person? What legacy am I leaving behind?
Okay.
What should people know me by?
So these are your charitable,
it could
society related. What other examples?
I think those are the ones which when you look at people and they say purpose, they say, listen, I can make an impact. Now that impact could be that I'm doing a startup because I'm going to try to solve a problem that I see that I can make money with. Also can also express myself saying that I'm a really intelligent, smart, skilled engineer who can build on something like this, right? So it's that self-identity need which becomes important.
So from an ultra HNI perspective, mutual funds versus alternates.
Ultra HNI perspective, I would actually give both equal marks. I would be biased to alternates.
You would be biased to alternates.
I would be biased to alternates.
Being a CEO of a mutual fund company, but you're saying...
I have an alternate license, so there's a selfish one way to look at it is that, oh, maybe, because I have an alternate, I'm doing this. But no, I think that when we talked about utilitarian, expressive, emotional needs, when we talk about the fact that I have great expertise in managing money in mutual funds, and my manager has a great track record in doing it, so he can do it with 20 stocks rather than 50. And therefore play a higher conviction, higher volatile, but a time frame that a mature investor understands that he wants that.
So you have just defined an alternate.
So because we are only in the category 3 AIF and PMS, and I think we have strong risk management and analytical support across the platform. But I think when it comes to ultra HNI and HNI, I mean, Cat 3 is like a mutual fund extension. Most people would go to category 2 AIFs and things like that. But I do think that PMSs and AIFs do play a role for ultra high net worth people.
Wonderful.
To express themselves, to get that thing of conviction, smaller concentrated portfolios and things like that.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
Now, from a retirement planning perspective, insurance plan or a mutual fund route to retirement plan?
You need both. You need insurance and you need investment, but I would
be
biased
only
to
a retirement plan.
Yeah. So if you're doing only a retirement
I am not
plan,
saying term
I would definitely not touch insurance. I would just, insurance
if
is
you're
life
developing
and
your own retirement plan, you believe mutual fund offers the best products that can create a wonderful, dependable, reliable retirement plan for one. You need not go to the insurance industry for a retirement plan per se.
Absolutely. I agree. Right. There are annuity products that are not there in mutual funds. I do think.
Are we expecting them?
Well, I don't think that we'll have annuity products in mutual funds. That's the domain of the insurance industry. And I do think that for a large segment of people, annuity products are good for retirement, which is why I said that there are.
But there is something known as an SWP, a systematic withdrawal plan, which can be used to create an annuity.
There is, but then because this is an open-ended industry, and that your emotions can play to redeem something in an event versus
if the investor is not disciplined enough, then he or she can hurt the annuity.
Most
but if
of
the
us
discipline
have that
is
problem,
there,
right? Yeah,
most of us have that.
So I think there are products that suit different segments of people in that sense. There are great insurance products that suit that purpose. But I would say for a more evolved investor, an affluent investor who's got wealth, I think mutual funds are a perfect route to build for long-term assets.
Real estate versus equity?
Equity any day.
Any day.
From that perspective, but real estate would be my asset allocation, right? In some sense. I'll not overexpose to real estate. I have my primary house, I'm fine. I can invest in
So one is talking about real estate besides the real estate for my house and for my office, besides that. As an investment.
Yeah, then I can invest in rates as well, right? So I don't need
real
to do multiple stuff.
Okay.
I mean, you should look at the depth and width of each asset class. When it comes to real estate, you have residential, you have commercial, you have land. So you could potentially have a little bit of all three if you have a lot of money. If you don't, then at least you have your primary real estate. The rest should be, your attempt should be
so you should not overdo on the real estate investment as some of the old, any asset class.
Exactly. The concentration is the biggest risk in investment for most people. Not for the people who have made the biggest bucks, like I said about Tesla.
Even there people are overexposed to. Even in ultra HNI category, there are some people who are pro real estate so much that they are overexposed to real estate.
It's possible. It's like I said, sometimes it's an expressive need. That is why they are overexposed.
But how much expressive need can you justify based on this?
Well, ultimately,
if you are 94%, 96% of your net worth is in real estate, okay, which beyond a point we know is not that easy to manage, and I don't think it gives double-digit compounding return over a very long period of time.
So that's why, sometimes that's why I said that our job is to educate and think of bringing all the principles of not having concentration, having diversification on the table. The client's context of money is generational of what they have learned as they have grown up. And it's therefore important to showcase, our risk management process as to why we are saying what we are saying. Because, you see, all clients are not our clients. Sometimes.
We cannot address everybody.
We cannot address everybody.
Okay. Listed versus unlisted. When you talked about equity, we talked about equity so much.
Yeah.
Equity exists both in the listed world as well as in the unlisted world.
My way of answering this, Nirav, would be of what I have personally done. I don't own a single stock.
You don't own a single
All
stock?
mutual funds.
Okay, okay.
All mutual funds.
Wonderful. You're the second CEO telling me that. You eat in your own restaurant?
Well,
what percent of your net worth is in mutual funds?
All of mine, I mean, well, if I were to look at it that way, I think it would be about 65 to 70% would be in mutual funds, other than real estate, gold.
Of which what
things like
percentage would be in your own mutual fund, PGIM mutual fund?
My sense is about around 10% at this point, because since as in the mutual fund industry, we have regulatory reasons to also invest in our own funds. I limit my investments to my own funds for that regulatory piece. For everything else, like I said, my advisor.
It is your advisor's
my
decision.
advisor who decides, where is he doing, what is he doing. I personally not invested in a single stock. My advisor does stock as well. But from my plan perspective, I don't have it. I prefer mutual funds.
Okay. Ajit, it's time for turntable.
Okay. So Nirav, let me ask you, since you're on the ground managing client money and you have 1,000 families that you're managing for. One of the things that afflicts all human beings when we come to our financial planning is that we tend to move our goalpost when we get closer and closer to it. How do you deal with it, and what is the advice you give customers about setting goals, and why not to change it too much? How do you do that?
So I am also a student of this subject, right? And as I say, Ajit, I don't think I am a advisor or a manager. Anyway, we can't use those terms.
Yeah.
I tell my children and my family and my friends, I am a lie detector. So I'm a distributor in the food chain. I am between manufacturers like you and investors. So investors come to me, trusting me that I should be giving money to one of the good manufacturers, some of the good manufacturers.
True.
And all the manufacturers come and pitch products to me on my table. Nobody will say my product is bad,
obviously,
and I have to be selective.
Right.
Purse ka size chota hai, client ka aur mera, and products are too many. So I am a lie detector and a psychologist. And goal post changing. See, I believe Indian investor is very new to goal based financial planning.
Right.
I mean, I don't think before I started my practice, people were even aware. Every single client of the 1,000 families that I am catering to, every single of them, I introduced the subject to them. That subject was foreign to them. Right. And yes, goal post changing definitely happens. That discipline is still not there. It sometimes happens with advisors also.
Right.
Okay, with MFDs also. So it's an iterative process.
Right.
It's a learning process.
Absolutely.
And I am very strict.
Right.
So I am so strict. Now I am learning not to be strict. That when a client buys a luxury car, वो मिठाई देने नहीं आते हैं कि बोले मिठाई देने दिया तो ये आधा घंटा भाषण देंगे कि this money was for my children's higher education and I used it for buying a luxury car. So now I am learning not to be that strict.
Okay.
I also learned one very interesting example. Like I had some of my professors who had taught me during my CA days, who later on become my client.
Right.
I unfortunately lost one of them.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And yeah, and I would tell him, sir, badi gadi thoda baad mein lete. Then I realized these are the people who have worked, toiled hard their entire life.
Right.
And I should not, the generation, the boomers or the generation X, I should not stop them from enjoying life.
Right. Absolutely.
There's no book, no textbook will teach you.
Right.
This I learned the hard way.
I completely agree with you, and I think that's important. I have just two more questions for you. One is, if I were to ask you to describe your risk management process in a simple manner, what are the key pillars of your risk management process for investing?
And my entire practice is around risk management. You told me in your podcast also, you keep talking about. I think risk manage कर लिया, returns को कभी manage करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, और ये you are lying to yourself and to your clients if you are selling I can manage returns. Return is a byproduct. You have to manage risk. So I am a huge fan. I was the first proponent of balance advantage fund and asset allocator and multi-asset fund in the industry. And that's why I believe some of these smart hybrids by some of the mutual funds are so smart. They have been back tested. Now we have data. In fact, I did a very thorough analysis during the COVID period. So 14 Jan 2020 to 23rd March 2020. So if I can give a mutual fund product to a client which falls less than half of what the indices fell, okay, then as Warren Buffett says, there are only two rules of investing. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. Now even a nursery child will say, ये तो समझ गया, but इसको life में implement करना is not easy.
Absolutely.
Whenever, and there will be a bad time. Once in 3 years. Earlier it was once in 5 years. Now I say once in 3 years there will be a bad phase. A geopolitical risk, a COVID-like situation, God knows, a political situation, we don't know. one eye is always on that particular day.
Right.
I tell my client, market ऊपर जाता है आप खुश होते हैं, मुझे डर लगता है. Market नीचे जाता है, I am not scared.
Right.
So my one eye is on that bad day which can come suddenly, and 1 month can spoil the wealth creation journey which has been panned out over a couple of years.
Right.
So these multi-asset funds, asset allocator fund or a balance advantage fund as a category, I'm a huge fan of that, and I made them as a flagship product, not a large cap fund or any other equity fund.
Great.
So first control the risk, and when I talk to the client, I bring down their expectations level. I say आपको पिछले 4 साल में अच्छा रिटर्न मिला होगा, but उसमें से आप 5% निकाल दो. I will not give you very high return, but when there is a bad phase, you will not have a bad time, will not have a bad experience. My job is to, in a bad phase, to give you much less loss compared to the market.
Absolutely.
That's how I manage it.
That's fantastic. My last question to you, Nirav, is what do you do about the most important wealth that you have, which is your health?
Yes. And in fact, Ajit, in one of my podcasts, I have talked about 8 types of wealth.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So let me. So our shastras, Lakshmi ko Ashta Lakshmi कहते हैं. Ashta in Sanskrit means 8.
Yeah.
So the first wealth is the wealth that we talk about, which is known as Dhan Lakshmi.
Right.
Second is Dhanya Lakshmi, ability to, do you have access to food? So in COVID, some households खाना नहीं पहुंचा था वहाँ पे, कुछ villages में खाना नहीं पहुंचा था. पैसा था, आप गांव में हो, आप छोटे शहर में हो, आपके पास पैसा है, लेकिन food city में आ नहीं रहा था. और let's say somebody is diabetic.
Right.
Okay, you have all the wealth in the world.
Right.
Now you can buy all the sweets in the world, but you cannot digest it.
Right.
So that is known as Dhanya Lakshmi.
Right.
Okay, then there is something known as a Raj Lakshmi.
Right.
When you speak, do people listen to you? Whether it is your employees, your subordinates, people in your family. I know I am taking a detour, but it's an interesting concept.
Of course it is. Yes.
Okay, one of the wealth again is your health wealth, which is Dhanya Lakshmi. There is Raj Lakshmi, so people like our Prime Minister, and there are other people, politicians, people who are in public space. If they can communicate well, there are people who listen to you.
Yeah.
Then there is one more Lakshmi where you have prudence. Okay, तो वो लक्ष्मी रहता है तो आपके पास prudence रहता है, नहीं तो prudence नहीं रहता है, यानी you don't have luck. So there are certain people, whatever they do, things don't materialize, and there are certain other people, whatever little they do, luck comes in their favor.
Right.
The last Lakshmi is Adi Lakshmi.
Right.
So I don't remember all the 8. Adi Lakshmi is whether you have spiritual wealth.
Okay.
Okay. Now coming to health. So it's very recently that I started physical exercising.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in India and our generation, we believed that sports was only till you were earning, till you didn't start earning. And once you start earning, unlike the Western world, we stop exercising. My greatest secret for my wealth is meditation.
All right. See.
And Ajit, I keep following all the international investors, starting from Warren Buffett to everybody else. And there are some many. So there's Ray Dalio.
Right.
He's a great meditator and he's a proponent of meditation.
Right.
There are many international minds. India में कोई meditation बोलता है, it doesn't surprise me.
Right.
Okay. Internationally, I am seeing people who are great wealth managers in our field and who attribute their success to meditation.
Wonderful.
Because in meditation, you empty your mind.
Correct.
So that is one. Even today, I did it before coming for the podcast.
Okay.
I think my entire success is attributed to that, and I believe the next generation listens to that. So that takes care of your emotional and mental and spiritual health.
For sure.
And physical health is 100% required, because if you don't have health and if you have wealth, money, there's no point.
That's the reason I asked the question. But nice to know, Nirav. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Ajit, for giving your time. And I think we had one of the very wonderful discussions, and this will go down. I think this is going to go viral. And people from all generations. So my takeaway was, one, there is something known as generational wealth.
Right.
Okay, there are people, different generations think
Attitude
about
to
money.
wealth, yeah.
The attitude toward wealth changes with generation.
That's right.
That is one of the reasons why sometimes I feel I was not able to connect with the next generation.
There you go.
I was connecting very well with the parents and probably not with the next generation.
That's right.
So that is a great learning for me. And you said you hire somebody from that generation to talk to them. And the different, you said about expressive.
Yeah. Utilitarian, expressive and emotional.
Right. That's a wonderful learning. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure.
It was my pleasure too.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you.